not with military, you are not mercenary. What are you? Lost tourist?
I'm no tourist.
So here we are at the third entry into the Rambo franchise, and after a stellar start and a much more action-oriented sequel, which direction would this film be taking? I can safely tell you this follows a similar path to that of the second film, and that it is, in my view, the weakest instalment of the franchise. It's not that far off in terms of quality when compared against First Blood Part 2, but it does lack in some areas, which brings it to a lower level. But it's still enjoyable, very much so, and with Rambo and Colonel Trautman, who gets much more hands-on this time around, it's definitely worth a watch. Following his heroics from saving the POWs, Rambo has isolated himself from the world. Trautman didn't exactly have an easy time finding him, and to find him stick fighting in Bangkok of all places isn't exactly what the Colonel was expecting. So why was the Colonel there in front of him now? I guess a few years on from watching Rambo succeed in heading back into the jungles of Vietnam, he was craving a piece of the action for himself. He wanted Rambo to join him. This mission he was personally going on in Afghanistan was to help supply a remote village with aid, supplies and Stinger missiles for the Afghan rebels to fight back against the invading Soviets. However, much to Trautman's desire, Rambo had to turn him down. This has to end for him sometime, and even though his one friend in the world was asking this of him, he just couldn't head back into war again. All these years hidden away in Thailand, helping out wherever he could, he liked it here, and the Colonel respected Rambo's decision. Krenner's extra involvement here is pleasing and well deserved. He stood side by side with Rambo all the way through this franchise so far, so some extra screen time for him is appreciated. However, what on earth was he thinking? He and his group heading over that border were woefully and inadequately prepared to fight back against the Soviet forces. They were obliterated in seconds with Trautman falling into the hands of the enemy. Now, what this film does give us is a true adversary in Mark de Jong's Colonel Zeissen. His presence lurks in every corner of the film, and he is the all-out bad guy. Lieutenant Colonel Podolsky in First Blood Part 2 didn't play a huge role overall, where here, Zeissen is involved as early as possible and is a mainstay until the end. He is an exceptionally brutal commander. He strangled off all aid from the outside and runs countless attacks on the Afghan rebels wherever he can. But once news returned to Rambo that his one friend in the world was captured and no one would be coming to help, he wasn't going to stand idly by. He aimed to infiltrate that fort where the Colonel was being held, and after being assisted over the border by his guide Musa, he started to see with his own eyes the horrors of war on this side of the world. He sat down with the leaders of the village and insisted if no aid came his way, he wouldn't begrudge them for it, but he would still be going into that fort. And as Rambo attempted to bond with the rebels whilst the leaders came up with a plan, it came to a sudden stop. Zeissen ambushed and went on to devastate the defenceless village. So many deaths from an unprovoked attack, but that was normal life here. Right there, Rambo had seen enough. That night, he went on towards the fort, intent on springing the Colonel free. Right here, best section of the film, easy. Rambo showcases his many skills of stealth and cunning. See, he's not just a war machine, as he and Musa planted remote bombs all over the fort as Rambo went deeper and deeper inside. However, the biggest misstep of the film happened to force its way in with them. Hamid, that little brat, just refused to abide Rambo's orders. He nearly got them caught, ignored Rambo's orders again, and then screwed everything up. Rambo was so close to getting Trautman out of there, but once the first bullet was fired, he never had a chance of getting him out then. Stupid kid messing it all up. He then went and got himself shot. Great assistance you are, mate. And Rambo, now wounded in the retreat, had to come up with another idea. We did get this scene though, one of the most badass scenes in the whole franchise, pouring gunpowder into his wound and then cauterizing it the way he did. I don't care how realistic it is because it was bloody cool. Now, if you're the enemy, you'd be right to try and scour the mountains and caves for Rambo, which is exactly what Zeissen did. But this is Rambo we're talking about, and wounded or not, he scaled that cliffside anyway and would push on again until he had rescued his friend. Arrived right in the nick of time too before Trautman became toasted. Music was so on point here you wouldn't believe when Rambo makes his attack. It's my favourite scene mostly because of the score, and now freed from captivity and getting what he wanted in a way he didn't anticipate, the Colonel and Rambo were side by side as they made their final standoff. We got another extended stealth section in that cave, plus points for that, and it was 2 versus, well, all the rest of them. Surrendering wasn't an option. They knew what was in store for them if they did. So it was fight or die. The Afghan rebels sure picked a hell of a time to even the odds, and as numbers were dropping on both sides of the war, the figureheads on either side made their last charge. Zyzen, dude, did you really think you had a chance with this one? It's tank versus chopper. Your last and fatal mistake. My overall verdict for Rambo 3 is a 6 out of 10. It's the weakest entry into the Rambo series, and as much as I enjoy it, I feel it still lacks when compared to the rest. Mokrenna is the film's biggest positive, and the multiple extended stealth sections where Rambo broke into the fort and then again towards the end with the Colonel were easily the better sections of the film. The subject matter in terms of story hasn't aged well with the current times, but that is no fault of the film's, it is just an unfortunate outcome. Regardless, the film does misstep in some key areas. The dialogue and lines are quite poor overall, and you don't really care who lives or dies in the film aside from our 2 main characters. Musa, I suppose, is the only side character who as a viewer you've grown a little fond of, but it still doesn't stop him from being the absolute worst reader of character I have ever seen. Telling Rambo multiple times that he doesn't look like a man of war, he's never fired many shots yet, okay then buddy, you keep on thinking that. Main problem though, Hamid. Little brat defies Rambo again and again, nearly gets them all caught and killed, constantly badgers Rambo when we first see him, can I have this, can I have that, just shut up and push off you little shit. And then Rambo gives him cause memento at the end, ugh, what are you doing, God, ugh, right, enough of him. Colonel Zyzen though is another stronger point. He gives Rambo a focal point to mount his aggression towards. The other 2 films partially had that. The sheriff was never a villain, just morally corrupt. Podolsky wasn't around so much, so now we had a full-time antagonist here to stay. For this sort of story, it needed it too, I think, and seeing him meet his demise in the crunching collision at the end gave him a nice send-off. It has its highs and lows, but when the action, blood and bullets kick into overdrive around the 40-minute mark, the body count predictably surpasses that of the second chapter. This seems to be a running theme, so I wonder if in the next instalment that trend will continue. A little teaser for you for my next Rambo review. The 4th film is to this very day my favourite of the 4. So what did you all think of the 3rd entry into the Rambo franchise? Do you agree that it's the weakest thus far? Are there any positives or annoyances that I didn't talk about? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one.